Well, apparently there was no confusion whatsoever. The defending Super Bowl champs opted to give the ball to the Jets in overtime, and they marched right down that field, right into the end zone, handing the Patriots a loss on Sunday. Good morning. Welcome into First Take. I'm Prim Saripapat filling in for Molly Karam. Skip Bayless joins us from New York. And what do you know? So does Stephen A. Smith. Gentlemen, how are you this morning?
Good morning. How you doing? Merry Christmas, everybody. How you doing?
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
All right, so the first question we want to
I'm
pose
just so
to you
happy.
guys. Go ahead, Skip.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
So the first question we want to pose to you guys, do you agree with Bill Belichick's decision? Stephen A., let's go to you first.
Well, believe it or not, I don't really have much of a problem with it. I do understand that it seems almost sacrilegious to take the ball out of Tom Brady's hands. But if you recall, in the fourth quarter, the Patriots defense had did its thing against the New York Jets. They had 3 and outs on 2 occasions in the fourth quarter. The New England Patriots overcame a 2-touchdown deficit and ultimately were able to tie it and send it into overtime. While I understand that there was an 11-play scoring drive that Brady was able to execute and ultimately finish off to force overtime, at the end of the day, when you consider that Bill Belichick was saying field position was an issue, it was something that he wanted to address. Please don't get me wrong. I want to emphasize that, again, it was a shocking decision because anytime you could get the ball to Tom Brady and a touchdown ends it without the Jets would not have even been able to get the football, you certainly usually think that Tom Brady's going to get the football. He's one of the greatest quarterbacks ever, and he obviously is a closer. So I definitely understand the trepidation that everybody is feeling. But in the end, what it comes down to me is that this is Bill Belichick that we're talking about here. This is the same Bill Belichick that took the ball with the wind against the Broncos years ago, and it ended up panning out for the Patriots. It's the same Bill Belichick that somehow, some way didn't call a timeout, didn't do anything in the Super Bowl, ultimately before Malcolm Butler intercepted Russell Wilson's pass intended for Kurtz. We've seen at times Bill Belichick make decisions that, dare we say, appeared to be inexplicable and seemed to make no sense whatsoever. And it panned out in a favorable, advantageous fashion for the New England Patriots. So in hindsight, clearly it appears to be the wrong decision. But at that moment in time, regardless of how incredulous all of us may have been with Bill Belichick making this decision, it's not beyond him to make calls that go against, dare I say, conventional wisdom. And the only folks looking like fools are those who believed in conventional wisdom instead of believing in Bill Belichick. He's Belichick. He's earned the right to take those chances. I have no doubt he knew what he was doing. It just didn't pan out this time around. That's the way I look at it.
You know how I look at it? I believe that you, rooting for the Jets, whom you picked to be a wild card team and to win this game, were as relieved as the Jets were that Tom Brady didn't get the football in his hot hands to start the overtime. I believe that you, Stephen A. Smith, heaved a great sigh of relief and thought, oh, thank you, Lord. We don't have to deal with Tom Brady here for a while. We get the first crack. Am I right about that?
You're wrong.
No, I'm right. Okay,
no, you're not.
So here's the point. Here's the point. From my perspective, I don't care how great Bill Belichick has been or will be, he made a big mistake under these circumstances. This was at the Jets against a Ryan Fitzpatrick who is playing the hottest quarterback, the best quarterback of his life, throwing it to Brandon Marshall and Eric Decker and even Quincy Enunwa, who had just dropped a perfect pass, or at least he didn't make a play on it, that could have ended the game just moments earlier. In part because both the Patriots' starting safeties were out for the game. So under those circumstances, Stephen A. Smith, given the fact that, as you mentioned, Tom Brady had just led his team 66 yards, converting a 4th and 1 to Gronkowski and a 4th and 9 to Gronkowski, I am going to put the football back in his hands. And as soon as the coin landed and I saw that it had been called heads, and it was heads, I thought immediately, as God is my witness, that's it, game over. Brady's got him right where he wants him. And at first I thought, wait a second, is is Slater, is he confused here? Because the referee jumped right in, that Clete Blakeman, and immediately said, you want to kick. Not with a question mark. He put it as a declarative statement, you want to kick. At that moment, I'll be the first to admit, I was not aware that now routinely the referees check with each coach. If you win the toss, which way do you want to go? You want to kick, receive, you want to defend a goal, whatever. So I did not know that. But what Slater didn't know was that you can't have two choices there. He seemed confused because he wanted to kick this way. He wanted to defend that goal. Nope, you don't get two choices. You get one choice. You can kick. Then it's up to them which way they want to go or whatever they want to do. Now back to your game that you talked about in 2013 in Foxborough. It was a gale force wind. Belichick won the toss but didn't choose to kick off. He chose to take the wind. Well, then it's up to the Denver Broncos. That was Peyton Manning. So it's their choice. Denver could have said, okay, you want the wind? We'll kick off. I mean, it's up to them. But they wanted the football against the wind. And guess what? Tom Brady, with the wind, twice failed to move the football and get it into scoring position in overtime. It took a punt by the Patriots that one of the Broncos mistakenly ran into and made a free ball that was recovered at the 13-yard line of the Broncos. That's what it took to win that game. They got a chip shot field goal out of it. So, again, was that Belichick genius? Well, I mean, anybody under those circumstances would think, maybe I should take the gale force wind because we've got maybe the best clutch kicker in football in Gostkowski, and maybe he can make it from 60 yards. So I get the logic there. But this was not a win game. This was not a home game. This was Bill Belichick trying to repolish his genius reputation, and he blew it. I think Bill Belichick lost the game because I believe that Tom Brady would have won the game. And I believe that every player in the Patriots locker room would have concurred with me privately after that game.
Well, I agree with that. I definitely think in hindsight, clearly Bill Belichick made a mistake, Skip. And I definitely think that you're right about what the players believe, because that's why Slater checked with them 3 or 4 times and was quoted as saying the coach was looking at me like I was concussed because I double checked and triple checked with them to make sure that you want to kick it off. So you're absolutely right. But what I'm saying is, don't come to me and say that Bill Belichick lost the game because Bill Belichick was trying to be a boy genius or whatever the case. He has established himself as the greatest coach of our generation. He took a chance. He decided to go with what his gut was telling him to do. I'm saying in hindsight, we have the benefit of hindsight. But at that moment in time, looking at it from his perspective, he's thinking that just like we neutralized the Jets offense in the fourth quarter, we can do it again in overtime, force them to punt. Once they punt it to us, we'll get better field position than we would have had we received the ball on the opening kickoff of overtime, and that will put us in a better position to win this football game, because even though Tom Brady came through in the end, prior to that, what was the offense doing? 2 field goals, that's it. Jamie Collins recovering the fumble and returning it for a touchdown was the only touchdown that the New England Patriots could muster up to the point that Tom Brady was able to do something with that 11-play, 66-yard drive. So in that regard, Bill Belichick thinking along those lines, having faith in his defense, not thinking that a blown tackle, all right, and a blown assignment was going to allow a Nunwa, who had just dropped. Really, he should have caught that daggone bomb from Fitzpatrick, but he allowed, in this particular play, he was allowed to scamper 48 yards. We get that he didn't count on that happening. I'll tell you something that somebody mentioned to me, Skip. They were actually half joking when they said this, but they said maybe Belichick lost on purpose because he didn't want to face the Steelers, because obviously with the Steelers at that particular moment in time in a position to get to the playoffs, who would you rather face? You want that Steelers high-powered offense to go up against, or do you want to facilitate somebody like the Jets getting in when you've essentially owned them? I don't think that there's much merit to that, but it was something that was comical and funny enough for me to mention. But in the end, it's Bill Belichick. And there are many occasions where we have found ourselves scratching our heads as to why he would make a decision. But then all of a sudden, you see it works out. This particular instance, it did not. And I'm saying he's secured the AFC East. He's got a number 2 seed in the playoffs, no doubt, likely the number 1. He rolled the dice. He took a chance. It didn't work out. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, to your conspiracy theory about Bill Belichick wanted to avoid playing the Steelers, trust me, it's out there on the internet, and it's probably gaining momentum as we speak.
Wow.
I am not going to give him that pass and that out. I'm not going to do it because I'm with you. It's hard for me to fathom that Bill Belichick tried to lose to a division rival, the Jets, so that he might be able to play the Jets again in the playoffs as opposed to the Steelers. But I will say this, Stephen A. Okay, at the end of the first half, he was arch conservative there too. And I don't know what happened, but again, the Patriots got the ball with 1:52 left at their 16-yard line, and Bolden breaks loose for about 13 yards. So all of a sudden, you're 1st and 10 at the 29. You have 2 timeouts left, and Belichick basically just waved the white flag and said, let's just take it to the house. Let's just go to the locker room for halftime, and we'll sit on our 10-3 deficit. I think the Jets were up 10-3 at that point. And it shocked me because you do have Tom Brady. Now, does it take him time without Amendola, without Edelman, without Scott Chandler, with the decimated offensive line? Does it take time for Tom Brady to figure out the Jets defense, which is really, really good, especially with Revis and Cromartie? They just know Brady so well. Sure, it's going to take some time, but I thought by the fourth quarter, he was starting to get a rhythm, starting to figure out with he and Josh McDaniels what was working. They had figured it out, and then Coach Belichick, as great as he is, sort of out-cuted himself, decided, let me show everybody that I know something they don't know, that I'm still the genius. And the obvious thing to do is put the ball in the hands of Tom Brady. It's your only hope to me. And, of course, without a Devin McCourty, without a Patrick Chung, safeties take bad angles, and you know what happened the rest of the story. 48 yards later, they're at least in field goal range and finally scored the quick touchdown.
Well, like I said, I think you're right, Skip. I think you're right in hindsight. The difference between you and I is I think you're talking about the ultimate results that ended up occurring. I'm talking about being in the moment, and I'm saying he's Bill Belichick, man. You know, he's earned the right to take chances and to do things that are relatively unconventional. And when you listen to the logic behind it, although I would have made a different decision, I would have definitely put it in Tom Brady's hands. Although 99% of the population would have made a decision that would have put the ball in Tom Brady's hands. We all concede that. But none of us have been to 6 Super Bowls, and you got 4 Super Bowl titles and all of this. I mean, I'm just saying he's earned the right to make that call without being excoriated because, oh my goodness, his arrogance got the best of him. No, he's coaching a football game.
I'm gonna say this one more time. I still say Brady made Belichick more than Belichick made Brady. So in the end, as great as he is, Bill Belichick, you have to defer to the quarterback who I think has always been a little more valuable than you are as a head coach. And that's what happened there. He didn't defer to the great Tom Brady.
Well, all I'm saying to you, Skip, is if you're going to say that, then just say that Michael Jordan made Phil Jackson. Sit there and say that the great coaches were. I'm saying I'm not disrespecting Phil Jackson by any stretch of the imagination, nor am I disrespecting Belichick. I'm saying great talent always makes great players. Because let me tell you, did Lawrence Taylor make Bill Parcells? One could argue that happened. You understand? But it doesn't take away from Bill Parcells' greatness. Wait a minute now. We're talking LT now. We're talking LT. So I'm just saying.
But he's not a quarterback. He's not a quarterback. It's hard to have that much impact. But he had a lot. Yeah,
I'm just saying great players make great coaches. We understand that. But something needs to be said about a system that Bill Belichick has implemented that fosters and elevates the level of greatness that Tom Brady is able to put on display. He's earned the right to make that call. It's a regular season game. If this is a playoff game, you're right. It's a regular season game. We secured the division lead. I've got a top 2 seed in the AFC. Everything's good. They're the ones that need this more than we do. We want to win the game, but let's try something new. This is what I'm thinking. It's not a level of urgency for the Patriots the way it was for the New York Jets. I don't have a problem with it. I really don't.
And to your point, Stephen A., the Patriots can still clinch the top seed with a win at Miami next weekend. All right, so let's